But right now, let's bring in Newt Gingrich, a Fox News contributor, former Speaker of the House, former Republican presidential candidate, and he joins us from Rome. Newt, we just heard that there's a possibility, even though it's going to be a couple of weeks before anybody in the country winds up with those checks from the federal government, there could be a phase 4. And you have an admonition of lawmakers considering a phase 4, whatever you do, don't put a bunch of stuff in there that is not related to CV-19.
Yeah, look, I think it's very likely that the House, where the radicals are in control, would love to blackmail the country. They tried on this last bill and failed. So they're salivating at the idea that they could produce a new bill with everything they've ever wanted in life and somehow blackmail the president into signing it. I suspect we will need a Technical Corrections Act, because when you pass, in 3 bills, we passed almost $2.2 billion in federal spending. Clearly, some of those things will need technical corrections. But I don't think the Republicans in the Senate or the president should accept any kind of radical policies from Nancy Pelosi and AOC and that group in order to get this stuff done. I think the country won't stand for it, and I think they can make a very good case that what we need is to help the country not to enact the Democratic Party's platform. So I'd be very cautious. I do think they will need a Technical Corrections Act, just because I can't imagine writing a $2.2 billion package in 3 different bills and not having some things you want to go back and tweak. But I would, first of all, until you see how it's working, how do you know what you need more of? I mean, this is a huge amount of money being poured into the economy in a variety of different ways. And when you count the extra money the Federal Reserve has now liberated, it may be as much as $6 trillion.
Newt, how can we help our economy recover? I know you have the public health strategy for recovery. What is that?
Well, I think that you need what used to be called the ink blot strategy when we applied it in counterinsurgency, and that is you start somewhere that's strong and you gradually grow it out. So, for example, we have a very, very strong hospital system in the Dakotas in Sanford Health. We have relatively few people who currently are infected. You could focus on really tracking down just the people who currently have the disease, isolating them, and the rest of the Dakota economy could start back up. Similarly, in Utah, you have a remarkable system in Intermountain Health, and they could lead the other hospitals in Utah in a similar kind of strategy. So I don't think you can take the lockdown you may need in parts of New York City, which, by the way, is not the same as upstate New York, where there are some counties that have nobody who's infected. We're a big country. We need to gradually reopen the country, and I think we do that by growing from the healthiest places back towards the places that are sickest.
Sweden has decided to take their seniors and put them under shelter in place and have continued on as if nothing's wrong while doing the social distancing, but want to work. How close are you watching Sweden? Norway and Denmark are doing what we're doing, but Sweden's doing their own thing.
Yeah, so Sweden actually has come closer to what I'm describing. The Swedes have been very targeted in what they're doing. The result is their economy is stronger, and they have fewer people infected than either Denmark or Norway. So you can have an intelligent strategy. And look, if you look at Singapore, Taiwan, South Korea, there's pretty good reason to believe that the right kind of targeted strategy can actually contain the disease while keeping the economy running. And I think it's very important to recognize if you have a bad economy for very long, that has its own health consequences, both in increased suicides and increased alcoholism. I mean, there are a lot of side effects of a bad economy. And so we want to balance this between controlling and defeating the virus, which we will do, and relaunching the economy step by step, recognizing that this is a little bit like a wartime mobilization. This isn't like your traditional economics in peacetime. But I think there are a number of states where you could begin to reopen, and even inside some states that are hard hit, there are a number of counties where you could begin to reopen. And there are also a number of big companies doing a great job, and they involve sometimes 500,000 employees, And I think as long as they follow the right procedures, as long as they work to protect people's health, we want them to recover as rapidly as possible.
Absolutely. But you know, everybody wants the country to go back to work. But the worst thing that could happen is parts of the country open up and then it comes back for phase two, a different kind of phase two, a coronavirus phase two. And that would be a disaster. And I'm sure that's why the president made the calculation yesterday. You know what? We're going to take a 1 month timeout.
Sure. I think, first of all, we're a continent-wide country, and I think you have to think about is the rules you need in downtown New York City, which is the hardest hit place in the United States, are those the same rules you really need in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, or that you need in parts of Utah or parts of Arizona that are rural? And all I'm suggesting is we can gradually begin to bring back the economy. We can do it in a way that's controlled, and we can have both public health and a good, healthy economy simultaneously. You're not going to have an on-off switch. You're not going to be able to say, let's just sit and do nothing until the disease is finally defeated, because that would take too long. The economy would have too many side effects, and you couldn't sustain the pain level. So you're going to have to figure out how you gradually squeeze out the disease. Every place that's strong, we ought to literally, I think, go very carefully and very slowly and recognize that public health is our first priority. But everywhere that we can follow a traditional public health strategy of identifying and isolating the handful of people, and in some of these states, you're talking about 65 or 70 people. So if you can isolate them, take care of them, not have them spreading the disease, you can open up the rest of the state to go back to business. And gradually, over the course of the next 60 to 90 days, we want to reopen the whole country.
Mr. Speaker, thank you so much.